In the vast expanse of the galaxy, the Galactic Council assembled once again in their grand chamber, a meeting held in the deepest reaches of space, where the most powerful and ancient species in the known universe gathered to discuss the future of the galaxy. The chamber was silent except for the murmurs of representatives, shifting in their seats the weight of the moment, felt by all, yet no one could predict what would transpire next. On the table was a subject many had hoped would never come up: humans, a young and volatile species whose rise in the galaxy had begun to turn heads. Some species dismissed them as primitive, a race still caught in the grip of their early technological phases, while others quietly acknowledged the rapid pace at which they were advancing. It was the scholar race of Surthians, an ancient civilization whose wisdom had guided the galaxy for millennia, that first raised the alarm. Their leader, an elder known only as Vela, stepped forward, her wrinkled face betraying a lifetime of knowledge. She spoke with a calm that only centuries of existence could produce. Her words were chosen carefully, each one deliberate. "We have watched them," she said, her voice cutting through the air like a blade. "We have observed humanity's growth from the shadows, and we have seen their potential. They are dangerous, a species driven by ambition and an insatiable need to conquer everything in their path. Their capacity for violence is far beyond what any of us imagined." The Surthians had always been the voice of caution. Their warnings had saved countless civilizations from destruction, but their words were not always heeded. This time was no different. Her message was met with indifference by most of the council. Their response was predictable, dismissive, and filled with arrogance. "The human race," they said, "is too young and too weak, their technology too crude to pose any real threat. Let them grow. They are simply another species finding its place among the stars. There is no need to intervene. Let them make their mistakes." Another council member, a tall and imposing figure from the Sarks race, a species known for their ruthless military strategies, scoffed at the warning. No one would dare challenge the order of the galaxy, he argued. "Humans are just another in a long line of short-lived species that have come and gone. They will learn their place eventually." His voice echoed through the chamber, drowning out the Surthians' quiet concerns, while the rest of the council murmured in agreement. Even those who held positions of power in the galaxy were not worried. Their military forces were unmatched, their technology advanced, and their dominance unquestioned. It was not uncommon for new species to test their limits, but the humans were an anomaly, to be watched, not feared. They had no concept of true power, yet the Surthians' warning hung heavy in the air, like a storm cloud waiting to burst. But they were ignored, their concerns brushed aside as paranoia rather than wisdom. The vote was called, and the decision made: humanity would be monitored, but there would be no intervention. The council had spoken, and the fate of the galaxy was sealed. It was a decision that would haunt them all, but none of them could see it coming, not yet. They had no idea what they were unleashing on the galaxy, and by the time they realized, it would be far too late. A few months passed before humanity's actions proved the council's decision wrong, and by then it was already too late. The first real test of humanity's resolve came when a human exploratory vessel ventured into an uncharted system. Located on the fringes of the galaxy, the system was home to an alien race known as the Tormans, a peaceful species with a long history of isolation. They had never been involved in galactic politics, preferring to study the stars from their homeworlds and maintain a life of quiet meditation and intellectual pursuit. The humans arrived unannounced, and when they attempted to make contact, they found the Tormans' communication methods confusing and archaic to the human mind. This frustration quickly turned to impatience, and then to anger when their request for trade negotiations was met with hesitation. The Tormans simply did not understand the urgency of the human explorers' demands to them. The concept of rapid, impatient expansion was foreign. It was at this moment that humanity's darker side revealed itself. The humans, not used to being refused or delayed, took matters into their own hands and deployed a small force of their military ships. In an attempt to intimidate the Tormans into compliance, the alien species tried to reason with them, but their peaceful protests only enraged the humans further. In a move that sent shockwaves through the galaxy, the human ships unleashed a devastating strike against the Torman defense systems. The attack was swift and brutal, destroying most of their orbital infrastructure. In a matter of hours, the Tormund's peaceful civilization was obliterated, and any hope of coexistence shattered forever. The humans had no remorse, no hesitation, and no understanding of the consequences of their actions for them. It was simple survival. They wanted something, and they took it with force and precision. The Tormunds were left with little more than scattered debris, and the ghost of what had once been a thriving world. And yet, as the council watched this violence unfold, they remained passive. A few weaker factions within the council spoke out against the humans, urging immediate action, but the majority dismissed the attack as a mere misunderstanding. They argued that humans were still young and reckless, but they had not yet shown the depth of their true power. It was simply an isolated incident, perhaps a clash of cultures or an unfortunate misstep. A few ships were lost, but nothing that could threaten the galactic balance. The Tormunds were nothing more than a casualty of humanity's growing pains. The warning from the Scythians still hung in the air, but it was drowned out by the smug belief that the galaxy was far too powerful to be threatened by such a young species. The council decided once again to let humanity continue unchecked, believing the incident to be a fluke. But the Tormund's destruction marked a turning point, one that would go unnoticed by those who had underestimated humanity's potential. A new fire had been lit in the hearts of the humans, and as they turned their eyes to the stars, they knew exactly what they wanted and were prepared to take it no matter the cost. The warning of the Scythians was still ignored, but the cost of that ignorance would soon become painfully clear as the humans began to set their sights on larger, more powerful civilizations across the galaxy. Humanity's rapid expansion into the galaxy began to gather momentum after the Tormund massacre. The council continued to underestimate the humans, dismissing their violent tendencies as isolated incidents. But as more human fleets moved into uncharted space, it became clear that their true ambitions were far greater than anyone had anticipated. Humanity was not content with exploration or trade. Their thirst for power was undeniable, and it began to show in every decision they made. They learned quickly from every encounter, adapting faster than any species in galactic history. They studied alien technologies with a mix of curiosity and ruthlessness, taking the best aspects of each civilization they encountered and incorporating it into their own rapidly advancing systems. Human engineers were able to reverse engineer alien tech at an alarming rate. What would take other species decades to achieve, the humans did in a matter of months. Their adaptability was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. The galaxy had never seen anything like it previously. Unknown to most, the humans had also perfected a form of biological augmentation, which enabled them to enhance the physical and mental capabilities of their soldiers. The first time the galaxy realized the full extent of humanity's rapid rise came when they encountered a long-established race known as the Gascoons. The Gascoons were a proud species who had controlled a vast stretch of territory for millennia. Their fleet was one of the most advanced in the galaxy, and they considered themselves masters of diplomacy and defense. When humans arrived in their sector, the Gascoons offered trade agreements and peaceful negotiations, but humanity was no longer interested in making deals. The humans did not come to trade, they came to conquer. With a single bold strike, they crippled the Gascoon fleet using advanced tactics no one had seen before. Their soldiers stormed Gascoon colonies with military precision, capturing worlds in days. The Gascoons, caught completely off guard, attempted to retaliate, but their response was too slow and fragmented. They underestimated the humans, just as the council had done, and the consequences were catastrophic. Humanity's forces overwhelmed them in a matter of weeks. Their fleets scattered. The Gascoon leadership was forced into retreat, while their colonies fell one by one under human control. The galaxy was in shock. The humans, who were once thought of as a fringe species, had now crushed one of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy, and they had done so with ruthless efficiency. The council, still divided over how to handle humanity, could no longer ignore what had just transpired. Many were unwilling to acknowledge the reality of the situation, but the writing was on the wall. Humanity had become a true force to be reckoned with. It was no longer about being a nuisance or an annoyance. Humanity's rise was inevitable and unstoppable. As the humans moved on to new sectors, they showed no mercy to those who resisted. The message was clear: submit or be destroyed. No negotiations, no peace talks, just conquest and domination. The galaxy's fragile balance had been shattered, and the Council's failure to act decisively now left them scrambling to contain a force they had long underestimated. Humanity was no longer a small threat on the edge of the galaxy. They were a growing empire expanding rapidly across the stars, and the cost of the Council's inaction had already begun to rise. The failure of the Council to act against humanity was no longer a quiet matter of speculation now. It was a galaxy-wide crisis. The warning of the Syrthians could no longer be dismissed as paranoia. Humanity had shown its true nature, and the Council's inability to respond had left many civilizations reeling from their unchecked aggression. But the decision to take action came too late. The humans had already established a firm grip on multiple star systems, and the galaxy's power dynamics had shifted drastically. Some Council members, particularly from the weaker races, were desperate for a solution. They feared what would happen if humanity's expansion continued unchecked. Desperate cries for intervention were met with strong resistance. The Council's larger and more powerful factions were still too proud to admit they had misjudged humanity's rise. The galactic military commanders continued to argue that humanity was simply an anomaly, a brief phase that would eventually burn itself out. Yet their resistance was futile. As the humans advanced with every victory, the galaxy's elite factions were beginning to realize their mistake. But it was already clear that the humans would not be content with simple domination. They intended to reshape the galaxy in their image. The first step taken by the Council was to form a coalition of the galaxy's most powerful fleets, a grand alliance of all races that had the strength to challenge humanity's growing empire. The military forces of the Orcs, the Harkon, and the Voltrani, the galaxy's most feared and ancient species, came together for the first time with one mission: to destroy the human threat. The plan was set in motion to strike humanity before their military strength could consolidate. But the humans were already anticipating this move. It was the first time that anyone realized the true extent of human cunning. The human military had infiltrated every corner of the galaxy, gathering intelligence from every race and world. They were always one step ahead. While the Alliance prepared their strike, humanity launched an unexpected assault on the Voltrani homeworld, a bold move that crippled their leadership and left their fleet in disarray. The Voltrani, who had once been the most fearsome race in the galaxy, were caught off guard by humanity's ruthless strike. The Alliance's plan fell apart in an instant as humanity swiftly turned the tables. Their surprise attack sent shockwaves through the entire coalition. It was clear now humanity had learned from every encounter and adapted in ways no other species had ever thought possible. They didn't just fight with technology. They fought with strategy. They fought with manipulation. They fought with an understanding of their enemies' weaknesses. The Council was in panic mode as their fragile alliance crumbled in front of them. The humans had been underestimated once again, and they made the galaxy pay for it. The Alliance's fractured forces were scattered across the stars, unable to mount a coordinated counterattack, and as humanity continued to conquer world after world, their grip on the galaxy tightened. Every victory was another step toward galactic domination. The Council had failed to stop them at the first sign of their rise, and now they were paying the price. The once proud and mighty factions were on the verge of collapse, and humanity's empire was growing stronger by the day. The decision to act had come too late, and the cost of inaction was more than anyone had ever imagined. The fate of the galaxy now hung in the balance. The Galactic Council was in chaos. The alliance of the galaxy's most powerful species had fallen apart, and humanity's rapid rise seemed unstoppable. That the Council, desperate to regain control, made one final attempt at diplomacy. They sent envoys to the human empire, hoping to negotiate a peace treaty that could stop the bloodshed and restore order to the galaxy. The humans, having already demonstrated their ruthlessness, were not interested in diplomacy. The humans had already calculated that their military strength would soon overshadow any resistance. They had no need for peace talks, no need for negotiation. They had already made it clear that their vision of the future was one of total domination. But the envoys persisted. They believed they could reason with humanity and offer them something they had not yet taken control without complete destruction. At first, the humans played along as if they were considering the offer. They agreed to a ceasefire and the envoys were granted a meeting with the human leadership. A grand ceremony was arranged to take place on a neutral world, a place where representatives from both sides could discuss the terms of a new galactic order. As the envoys arrived at the meeting site, they felt a sense of cautious optimism. They thought that perhaps humanity could still be reasoned with, perhaps they could find a way to end the bloodshed before it was too late. But as the negotiations began, the humans made their true intentions clear. It was not peace they sought, it was complete and total submission. The human leader, a charismatic and imposing figure known as General Ashford, addressed the council's envoys with a cold, calculated calm. He spoke of humanity's vision for the galaxy, a vision where humanity would not just survive, but thrive as the dominant force across all systems. He spoke of their desire to unite the galaxy under one banner, one human-led empire, where all other species would be subservient to their rule. The envoys were stunned. They had come seeking peace, and instead were faced with the full weight of humanity's imperial ambitions. General Ashford offered no compromise, no alternative. The humans would no longer be content with alliances or treaties. They would take what they wanted by force or by diplomacy, but only if the galaxy bowed to their will. His words were chilling, and the envoys could do nothing but listen in silence. He then revealed his true plan. Humanity had already prepared a network of highly advanced weaponry capable of disabling entire fleets and destroying planets. In an instant, the Council's military forces, weakened and divided, stood no chance against the combined might of humanity's new technological arsenal. The human general didn't need to ask for permission or approval from the Council. He simply expected them to comply or face complete annihilation. As the meeting ended, the envoys returned to their fleets, carrying the grim message: humanity would no longer be a subordinate player in galactic politics. They would be the ruling force or nothing else. The Council's last chance for peace had crumbled, and now the galaxy knew the true nature of humanity's intentions. They had come for everything, and they would stop at nothing to claim it. The galactic order that had stood for millennia was about to be torn apart, and humanity would be the force that reshaped it forever. The message was clear: humanity would not be swayed by diplomacy or negotiation. They had come to conquer, and nothing would stand in their way. As the Council realized the full scope of humanity's ambition, they scrambled to form a response. But the galaxy's defenses were already too fragmented to mount any meaningful opposition. Humanity's fleet had grown exponentially, its forces now stretched across dozens of star systems, and each new victory made them more confident in their ability to dominate the galaxy. The humans, once seen as an insignificant species, had quickly become the galaxy's most formidable military force. No one had been prepared for the speed at which they expanded or the ferocity with which they fought. Even the galaxy's most powerful factions were reeling from the loss of entire fleets and worlds. Humanity's relentless march seemed unstoppable. The Council's attempt to rally a united front had failed miserably. The once proud alliances were now fractured, with many species unwilling to trust each other in the face of the human onslaught. The Orcs, once the galaxy's greatest warriors, had suffered severe losses, and their leadership was in disarray. The Voltrani, too proud to accept humanity's growing power, had retreated into isolation. Their fleets scattered and their defenses weakened. The Harkon, known for their cunning and adaptability, were now fighting a desperate rearguard action as humanity's forces encroached on their borders. The Council called for a grand summit, desperate to find a solution. But the humans were already one step ahead. They had infiltrated the summit before it even began. As the Council representatives arrived, they were met with the chilling sight of human forces already in control of the summit location. Humanity had anticipated the Council's move and had prepared for it weeks in advance. The envoys and delegates were captured swiftly and without mercy as the humans made it clear that any further talks would be held on their terms. Humanity now controlled the center of galactic power, and the Council's remaining authority was nothing more than a hollow shell. The human empire had become the dominant force in the galaxy. The Council's final hope had been to use their combined military strength to launch a decisive counterattack. But that too had been outmaneuvered. Humanity had anticipated the Council's every move and had already set traps to deal with any resistance. Their military intelligence was unparalleled, and their strategy was beyond anything the galaxy had seen before. With each new victory, humanity's grip tightened as entire civilizations were absorbed into their empire. Many species were forced to submit in exchange for limited autonomy, while others were wiped out entirely. Those that dared resist were crushed without mercy. Humanity's tactics were not just military but psychological. They knew how to break the spirit of an enemy, to force them into submission. The human empire did not conquer through sheer power alone. It was their mastery of war, manipulation, and diplomacy that made them unstoppable. While other races fought in the traditional sense, humanity had rewritten the rules of galactic conquest. They fought not just with weapons, but with an iron will, a cunning mind, and the relentless drive to succeed. And as humanity's empire expanded at an exponential rate, the Council realized too late that they had made a terrible mistake. They had underestimated humanity, and now the galaxy was paying the price. The once great galactic order was crumbling, and in its place was a new empire ruled by humanity, its future unwritten but certain in its inevitability. The galaxy had descended into chaos as humanity's empire spread across the stars. The Council, once a symbol of unity and peace, had been shattered under the weight of their own failure. Humanity had shown no mercy to those who resisted, and its iron grip on the galaxy tightened with every passing day. What had once been a collection of proud civilizations now stood in the shadow of a new order ruled by humanity's unyielding will. Entire species were forced to swear fealty to the human empire or face annihilation. Some chose submission, believing it was the only way to preserve their people. Others, those too proud to bow before humanity, fought back with what little remained of their strength, but they were hopelessly outmatched. The humans had learned from every battle, adapting their strategies and tactics to counter every form of resistance. No one had been prepared for the sheer ferocity of the human will to conquer, and as the empire expanded, it began to reshape the very fabric of galactic society. Colonies and worlds that had once known peace were now brought into the fold of a military-industrial complex built to fuel humanity's unrelenting hunger for dominance. Entire planets were repurposed for the production of war machines and weapons of mass destruction. Nothing was left to chance. Every resource was siphoned into the war effort. Every species was either an ally or a tool to be used in the expansion of human power. Some civilizations, once proud and independent, were absorbed into humanity's empire. Their culture and identity swallowed whole. Others were erased from existence, their very memories wiped from the galactic records. It was an era of darkness, where the might of humanity ruled supreme and the weak were left to either submit or perish. The Council, now nothing more than a husk of its former self, had been reduced to a mere advisory body, with no real power, no real influence. The humans had no need for their approval or guidance. They had already taken control of the galaxy, and the galaxy's greatest minds had come to the painful realization that they had been wrong all along. The Surthians, who had warned the Council of humanity's potential, were among the first to recognize the gravity of their failure. They watched as their once proud civilization fell further into decline, their influence dwindling with each passing day. They had failed to stop humanity, and now it seemed too late for redemption. They had warned the Council, but the Council had refused to listen, and now they were powerless to undo the damage humanity's rise had caused. But there were those who still believed resistance was possible. The remaining factions, scattered and disorganized, began to rally once more. They knew the odds were slim, but they refused to accept the fate that humanity had imposed on them. They began to form alliances in secret, searching for any weakness in humanity's empire. They trained in the shadows, waiting for the day when they could strike back and perhaps, just perhaps, turn the tide of the war. But the humans, with their unparalleled intelligence and military dominance, were always a step ahead. They had anticipated every move, every rebellion, every counterattack. Humanity had built a galaxy-wide network of surveillance, spies, and informants that ensured they were always aware of the slightest threat. The resistance, though determined, found it harder and harder to keep their movements hidden. Humanity's empire had eyes everywhere, and as the last embers of the galaxy's former unity flickered out, one question remained: could anyone stand against the human juggernaut, or had the galaxy truly entered an age where only humanity's will mattered. The galaxy's final hope rested on the shoulders of a small, secretive faction, known only as the Remnants. They were the last defiant group of leaders from across the galaxy's once proud civilizations who refused to bow to humanity's empire. They were the outcasts, the dissidents, and the survivors from fallen worlds, united in their belief that humanity's dominance must be stopped at any cost. They knew the odds were astronomical, but their conviction burned brighter than the stars above. They had spent years in hiding, gathering intelligence, and quietly recruiting those who still believed in the possibility of freedom. They worked in the shadows, out of humanity's watchful gaze, knowing that a single misstep could lead to their annihilation. The Remnants had one goal: to destroy humanity's stranglehold on the galaxy and restore the balance of power. But to do so, they would need something. Humanity had thought it was immune to the power of unity among the galaxy's diverse species for years. Humanity had relied on its strength to conquer and divide, but the Remnants believed that the fractured factions still had the power to fight back together. For the first time since humanity's rise, they began to forge alliances among the scattered forces of resistance. The Harkon, the Zarks, the Voltrani, and even a few rogue human factions who had grown disillusioned with the Empire's cruel path came together under a single banner. Their armies would unite for one final stand against the humans. Their plan was audacious, their strategy was risky, but it was their only chance. The Remnants knew that humanity's strength lay in its ability to adapt and predict, but they believed the humans had become overconfident in their power. They would strike at the heart of humanity's empire, the human homeworld itself. They would shatter the very foundation of the empire and force the humans to fight a war on their own soil. It was a gamble like no other. If they succeeded, the humans would be forced to divert their resources and abandon their conquest. If they failed, the Remnants would be crushed, and the galaxy would fall completely under humanity's control. As the Remnants gathered their forces, they knew they were on the precipice of something both incredible and terrifying. The galaxy's last chance to resist humanity had arrived. The operation, codenamed Starfall, was set into motion. Fleets were assembled in secret and infiltrators were placed within humanity's empire, gathering intelligence and sabotaging key infrastructure. The plan was to strike at the heart of humanity's power, the human homeworld. The Remnants would deliver a devastating blow that would shake the empire to its core, and if they could destroy the very symbol of human supremacy, they would create a ripple effect that could inspire revolts across the galaxy. The operation began with the stealthiest of strikes, disabling human defenses and creating a breach in the planet's outer defenses. It was a daring assault, a battle between the galaxy's remaining free forces and humanity's mightiest military. But even as they fought tooth and nail to reach their target, the Remnants found themselves facing the one thing they had underestimated: humanity's response. They had underestimated the humans' ability to adapt, to outthink their enemies, to turn the tide of battle. Even in the face of overwhelming odds, humanity's forces were relentless, and as the Remnants reached the heart of the human homeworld, they realized the bitter truth: humanity had already anticipated their move and had set a trap. The Remnants had gambled everything on one final attack, but it had not been enough. Humanity's empire was too vast, its strength too great, and as the final remnants of the galaxy's resistance were crushed under the boot of humanity's will, the galaxy finally came to understand the cost of its failure. Humanity had won. The stars were now theirs, and the once proud civilizations that had opposed them were little more than ashes in the wake of their unstoppable force. The galaxy had entered a new age, one where only humanity's will could shape the future. The rest of the galaxy, whether they chose to submit or perish, had learned the hard way that no power could stand against the might of humanity's unyielding ambition.